So thank you, Patrick, for taking the time. We really appreciate it. We and also our community on YouTube. So you have been a great athlete, I think, and I think most of the people out there don't know that, maybe. We know you as a coach, but you were a great steeplechaser, I think. But I think around 25 years ago, you became a coach. So can you tell us a bit about that? How did you become a coach and what was your motivation for it? And maybe after that, I can repeat that question also, but what do you think is your main capability of being a coach? What makes you so successful in what you do?
Well, thank you for having me. I don't know whether it's 25 years ago or more. It could be more than 25 years ago that I purposed to do coaching. Maybe it was as a result of my experience as an athlete during my career, where I think the only time I had a real coach was at the college level. After college, I was on my own, and I realized the importance of having a coach, because in the span of my career, I missed gold medals in 3 championships. The 91 World Championships, I finished second. 92 Olympics, I finished second. And in 1993 in Stuttgart, Germany, I also missed and finished second. So I always realized that with a coach, I could have done better. So when I stopped running, towards my end of my career, the end of my career, people started joining me, following what I was doing. Though I was training basically for steeplechase, but people who were running 10,000, 5,000 were joining my program. So when I stopped running, I said, maybe there's something I can give back. And if there's anything, it's just helping the young athletes, realize what I missed, and that is having a coach. And by coincidence, I also happened to have met somebody who was keen in transitioning me from running to coaching. That's John Velschen. May his soul rest in peace. He passed on last year. And he took me to a World Athletics Development Program, coaching development program, at a very high level, because he thought, I think he waived the basics because of having finished the university level and having achieved in the world of athletics. So that journey started as a result of that, the coincidence of the fact that I didn't have a coach most of the time when I was running at a very high level, and the fact that this man, Velschen, felt like he needed to have more people who came through the sport take up coaching. So that coincidence started a different journey of my career as a coach. You asked me whether there is something that I feel gives me an edge in coaching. I really don't think there is anything. It's just, to me, I feel like if you understand the sport, if you have the technical tools, that is the training to be a coach, and you get the right athlete with the right mindset, with the talent, of course. I think if you have a rapport, mutual trust, I think you can achieve a lot as a coach. It is not that if you have the skill, given a good athlete, you can automatically translate into a very good athlete. But there are some dynamics, and one ceiling factor is trust.
Yeah, great. And speaking about the dynamics, I heard you saying, I think it was like in another documentary or video, and we all know that there is a runner's high or an athlete's high, but you are also talking about a coach's high. Can you tell us more about that?
2 years ago, I was in a conference in Frankfurt, and we were discussing things. Of course, it was more of a scientific conference, but I wanted to put across some silent features that also input success in performance. And one of the things that I discussed in the conference, the coach's eye, and this is something I believe in, that you have to have that extra way of looking at an athlete, and when you are endowed with it, that you can see, and it can be a reference or a reflection on what needs to be done more, then you can achieve more with an athlete than when you don't have. Mm-hmm. So I can go into details of explaining how it works. When you work seriously with a serious athlete, of course you will have done a serious profile. You know their weaknesses and their strengths. And now when you subject them to training, the weaknesses is what you want to eliminate. The strengths are what you want to enhance. So when you see them executing, the eye should be very keen on identifying whether the athlete is still leaning towards the weaknesses. And you can actually use the coach's eye to rectify that and enhance more the weaknesses and push towards reducing the weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think coach's eye is also in your daily work, maybe. We already discussed it, that you're not in the camp on a daily basis, but if you go for a long run, you can see how intense the workout is for these certain athlete.
When in training, you know, a coach's eye will tell you, you know, if an athlete pushes extra, you see the shoulders coming up, you know, just without, maybe even the athlete does not recognize. Mm-hmm. But when you see the shoulders coming up, you see this athlete is putting in more than necessary. So at least at that point, it's a point of intervention. Mm-hmm. Say, hey, what's happening? Then you see the shoulders going down. And that is the benefit. When I say I'm not with the athletes all the time, you know, that is what I meant about being in the camp. But in training, you know, the key trainings have to be there. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly where you have to see how the athlete is executing the task at hand. And then if they're doing it right, well and good. And that's where the coach's eye comes into place. Of course, the design of the program of the day will have been based on what that athlete is capable in the cycle they're in. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know, we have in sports or coaching the cycle of training, the macro cycle, the micro cycles, you know. So it depends on what phases you are in, but you can easily see that this athlete is doing more than necessary or doing less than necessary.
I think we saw that today on the track, a lot of high shoulders.
Yeah. Oh, today is
in our group actually.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you already answered it a little bit, but maybe you can jump more in detail. Beside the athletic performance, we can always watch that on TV. What else is important for you as a coach? What do you think about when you think about coaching an athlete? I mean, you answered a little bit, but maybe.
Like I said, you know, when we take in an athlete, we profile that athlete. That means you know who they are in detail. You know what kind of family background they're coming from. You know what level of education they attained. You know what kind of likes and you know what they don't like. So with that kind of information, when coaching, you try to bring the best out of that person as an athlete first. Secondly, you want to bring the best out of that person as a person. So we kind of look at the athlete holistically, because I mean there are so many good athletes, but we purpose, and personally I purpose that I consider myself as a parent, and a parent is not only looking at the child to perform well in school, but a child to be a good citizen, you know, in a society, and that is what we strive to do, you know. Hopefully we've succeeded in some cases. In some cases, you know, you fail. But at the end of the day, we want to bring more out of the person that we call an athlete, outside the performance.
Great answer, actually. I think we are not so holistic in our approach, actually, but I think it's quite nice. So I think the training in Kenya is quite known for high volume and also intensity. But from your point of view, I think it's more general speaking, what is more important, or is it both?
It's individualistic. There are people we realize maybe low endurance. So, and they are middle distance runners, for example. And this is somebody you want to enhance their endurance base. Definitely during the fundamental stages or phases of training, you would want to see that athlete achieve more. I have a classic case of an 800-meter runner, huge guy, he's more like a rugby player. But he runs at least 2 long runs of 40 kilometers in the build-up stage. So it depends also on how you execute the volume. Volume can be done differently. You can increase the volume to achieve maybe a wider base. So that's why sometimes when you see athletes at this phase where they're increasing the volume for the sake of enhancing endurance, you think that is the overall volume throughout the year. But yes, it may be. But if, let's say, your weakness is, like I said, endurance, you have to build in your program or the program of that athlete a higher volume of endurance over a longer period. Otherwise, they'll come down. Fitness level comes down very fast. And from my experience, the best way to maintain a high fitness level for longer is to maintain a certain percentage of endurance and recovery runs that are endurance-based as part of the program on a longer stretch period.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can understand that quite well. Also, like in triathlon, where we can have also the capability or the possibility to bike a lot, easy training, we can build a lot of endurance. Talking a little bit more about training, because the people want to know, of course, from you. Can you name very important workouts first for the 10K? So what do you think about the 10K you shouldn't miss as a 10K athlete?
I wouldn't want to really give a specific, because I can mislead. But ideally, an athlete to perform, maybe a 10K athlete to perform, you should have a good balance of endurance, speed, and aspect of speed and strength. These 4 fundamental components. Even if you have speed and you don't have a good balance of endurance and speed endurance, that speed will be useless. If you have a good balance of speed, endurance, you can perform better than somebody with speed and maybe basic endurance. So I think, to me, it's more of a balance based on your ability. Because if I give an example of speed endurance, we like doing 1000s, 1600s, 800s, 2000s. That gives you a combination of speed endurance and an element of endurance. When you come to speed, after having these in place, of course, if you are 27, 15 athlete, it will be really ridiculous to do 800s in let's say 201, 202. Maybe at some point later on, closer to competition, you can do less volume and maybe that. But ideally, you should carry the workload that is relevant to your ability towards your goal. So if we are talking about the athlete doing 27:30, 27:15, for example, these athletes should be able to have a decent training of at least 10 times 1,000, for example, in around 240. Of course, depends on where you're doing it at. You know, if you're doing it in a high altitude, of course, that's a different story. But in a normal average altitude, you should be able to do 10 times 1,000 in around 235 to 240. That gives you an understanding that, hey, if I go out there with a good endurance behind me, I should be able to run a decent 27-something 10K. That is the way I would put it. Otherwise, if I give a specific training,
it's okay.
it wouldn't help anybody, because it's individual based. If your PP is 29 minutes, I would not subject you to the example I gave you.
Yeah.
I would be more concentrating on you achieving comfortable thousands in 247, 250. You know, that gives me a good base of running, you know, 28, mid 28 and low 29s. That I'll be helping you.
Yeah.
So it depends on who you are, and our coaches should be able to guide you.
Yeah.
And in this case, I mean, even when I'm training people in a group, I always focus on the ability of individual athletes in the group. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And what is, like, if we look at the journey with Eliud, that you, I mean, is so successful, and I mean, it's the role model for maybe a lot of people out there. So what did you change actually going from the track, from the 10 and the 5,000 to the marathon in the last couple of years? You know,
in running, one benefit that Eliud brought after a long career on the track is that he had a long storage of mileage, having trained for that long to run 5,000 and 10,000. Of course, he didn't run so many 10,000, but quite a number of 5,000s, the very high level. So the mileage that he did over the stretch, you know, a minimum of by 10 years, from when he won the world title in 2003 to when he switched to marathon in 2012, 2013. It's 10-year stretch. So that there does not, you cannot discount that. How did we transition? We transitioned the mind more. That the mind had to understand you're going to a new territory that it had not experienced before. So I think that is the only bit, and of course the change in volume. To me, is willingness to, because we sat down for hours to discuss the transition, and we came to agreement that, you know, he had achieved almost everything on the track. Of course, he was missing Olympic title, gold. Otherwise, he had won gold in cross country, gold in World Championships, and silver in the Olympics. That's what was only the missing thing. He had run a world record as a junior. So there was nothing missing, really. So we had to interrogate the journey we had covered and anticipate what was there in the unknown. And we explored the unknown theoretically, which was for him, because he is somebody who is who understands things quick, and he, you know, he's a realistic person. He saw, you know, no challenge to try. And once you program the mind, I think the body follows. And that's what happened. And we are another decade down the road from the start of the journey. That started in Hamburg, in Germany, interestingly.
Again, Germany. So you just gave me the hints and hints. So my next question is actually, often people say mind over body. What is your take on it and on that? And maybe that is one of the strengths of Kenyan runners, maybe, because I don't know. What is your task on that? I mean, you already jumped a little bit into it, but
I mean, it's something that is a coach must be alive to. You have to be alive to the orientation mentally of an athlete in whatever task you have, you know, jointly, because it's a joint effort. If the athlete believes that I can do something, then, you know, the mind, I would say, is ahead of the body. the body, to me, responds to commands from the brain. And that's the mind. And I always say, when the two are in sync, you are a winner as an athlete, you are a winner as a coach, because to bring together the two to be aligned is always a challenge. But for me, the two have to be together, but the mind is ahead of the body.
Yeah, in line, but a little bit in front.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I think I'm totally with you. That's the biggest challenge.
Yes.
Always. Yeah. When you think, I don't know what's your experience with that, but maybe you can think into it. When you think about amateur runners, what can we learn from professional runners? People who run 40 minutes, or I don't know if you can imagine running that slow, or 50 minutes over 10K. So what can we learn from the professionals?
I think there are many things that we can learn from professional athletes. I mean, it's also a reflection of the athlete that is considering himself or herself as a hoppy runner. The reflection comes in the sense that in anything we do in life, you need to have a commitment. You cannot do without a commitment. An athlete that is running professionally is committed to the work. An amateur runner, to be consistent in the business of running, they need to have the commitment. They also need to have determination. When you are determined, you set short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. And as an individual, with that determination, you can progressively move towards something. And it's also a reflection of, where you're coming from as a person. If you are a doctor, this reflection on determination, commitment, is also a reflection on your business and in your career. So I mean, there is no unique thing that you said you can pick it. It's the commitment, the determination, hard work, which is a reflection of any discipline or any profession in our common society. When they plug into that, they'll have fun. They'll enjoy, because to me, when you're committed to something, you set goals towards that journey, and when you achieve, you'll always be like that top athlete achieving whatever they achieve. If you set up to run, maybe at the end of 2023, I want to run 10K in 40 minutes, and you progressively, in your commitment, in your determination, achieved 39:57. You will have the same acceleration, the same adrenaline levels as an athlete running 2 or 3 in a marathon.
Yeah, maybe not so many people will cheer you, but
yeah, you cheer yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
I always tell athletes. When you start in that starting line, who is your worst enemy? Who is your worst enemy when you're in the starting line? It's yourself. Yeah. Because you will never run against anybody. You will run against yourself. So if you can convince yourself that you've done the work and your potential is right, that if you have potential to run 2:05, and you push towards 2:05, I mean that is what you want. You don't want to dream 2:03 when you're realistically in the range of 2:05. So it's the same with a hoppy runner. If you purpose to, based on your ability to run 40 minutes, you can easily run 40 minutes if you are within that potential. But then when you start dreaming around running 29, and that's punishing yourself, punishing your conscience, reducing your commitment, that determination will be destroyed.
Yeah. Hard question, and this is the second last. If you think about 3 workouts, because I have to give the people, we have to give the people some training advice.
Yes.
Doesn't matter the distance. What key workouts do we need as a runner? It can be like, not 10 times, not the details, but maybe on track, long run, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, 3 fundamental sessions, especially in the cycle of maybe towards competition and during the competition phase. You need to have at least 1 session on the track that you can do. I'm talking about the track runners now. At least 2 track sessions. One that is biased towards endurance speed. Endurance speed is anything over 800 meters. The repetitions is close to, over the distance. Slightly over your distance. If you're doing repeats of whatever, so long as it's over 800 meters to 2,000, and you're a 10K runner, the repeats, should be between 7K and 10K. In the beginning of the season, you can do maybe more than that, but close to the distance or slightly over the distance. The speed should be, half of that. If you're a good 10K runner, your good 10K, good 5K should be what the maximum volume you do for your speed when you're preparing for serious 10K. So the volume would be 5 kilometers or 5,000 meters in this case. So do speed at that range. Do 1 endurance run once a week. And I think with that, the rest of the days, you can do easy recovery runs.
Yeah, nice. So we have to apply that to our training regime, actually.
But you have to interchange.
Yeah, of course.
You have to inbuild in between these sessions recovery runs.
In the forest, like we do in the Eton. We learned that already. Really nice.
Yes.
And one last question, because I found it so interesting. I heard you saying that, I think in Berlin, where I was there for Nike a couple of years ago, and there you said, in the beginning you coached Eliud, but then he coached you. And for me, because I experienced that as a coach as well, I mean on a different level, to be honest, of course. But can you tell this story to our community as well? We have a saying in our culture, my community, that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. That is what differentiates a coach and an athlete. But when you're executing the work, this knowledge, imparting on the athlete, train, this is what you need to do. The reaction from the athlete is a learning process for you. Because if you don't make it a learning process, then either you'll destroy that athlete or you'll achieve nothing. So it's like a seesaw. So gradually, you will understand the athlete more, you will achieve the performance. But that is, the flip side is a learning process for you as a coach. The athlete will also be learning something from you, besides the knowledge. How do you present yourself? Do you come after fighting with your wife? You come to the track like gloomy? Of course, I'll be looking at you. I'll be learning at you. But there are some things in the process, we tend to learn more about one another, like a seesaw, that can build a relationship better. But it goes to a point where now the athlete probably knows more than you and can execute that knowledge better than you expected. Then it becomes a learning process for you. Now, to be specific to your question, in 2016, Eliud, after running the Olympics, Nike came up with this idea that they needed to try to run under 2 hours. So they invited a few athletes to their headquarters in the US. One was Eliud. So when Eliud came back, he made an appointment to see me. So we met at my place. We just talked. So he was giving me a brief on the whole concept. So all along, I was not keen
so much keen in what he was saying, because I had read about it and I had heard from third parties. But I was keen on two things: body language and his mental orientation. These are things you cannot have a microscope or wherever to. It is built on how you have been relating over time. So I could see in his eyes there was fire. You know, you could see, and I said, man, this guy is showing me something I've never experienced before. You know, whoever talked, I mean, I think there is a guy called Bagenbauer. I think he's deceased now. The guy had inscribed on his wrist 159, and something triggered in Eliud's brain, something. And you could see he was really, you know, he was not himself. He was something else. So then that's when I realized, as much as I may have all along thought I knew about human relations in terms of execution of training programs, I'm seeing something new. And that thing, you know, it was never in the books.
No.
You know, it was never, and it was a different experience. So I asked him, you know, so what do you think, Eliud? We go for it? And you know, the answer was instant. Yes. So then afterwards, I could see the way he was now executing training program. I don't know, you know, inside me, I was challenging myself. I've never gone to that territory. You know, that's a new territory. You know, how am I going to, now I started challenging myself. How am I going to design the training programs? Of course, in the end, in this hotel, the experts from Nike came and they wanted to have a meeting with me. And so I thought maybe they were going to take over the athlete and manage. So at one point we discussed some things about non-disclosure. So I said, if it's that business, you take the athlete, when you finish with the project, he comes back home. So, and they were shocked because, you know. But anyway, if you see the documentary of that outcome, the Nike team, somewhere, somebody is saying, we kept a distance, but we watched what was happening. And there was nothing we could recommend for change. So which qualifies the fact that, you know, over time, the coach and athlete develop a serious relationship. So I know what your limits. I could have pushed, if I was not experienced and knew Eliud very well, I could have pushed him thinking that if I doing faster things, doing more, could take us closer to that. But you see, through the coach's eye, the one I shared, you know, if I push this way, this guy will break down. And if he breaks down, the whole thing, and I'm sure some of the members could have probably tried, because going into the event, some were really down. So they could have experimented. You know, you can never experiment. You execute based on the knowledge you have of the athlete, the knowledge you have of the sport, what is possible physiologically. You know, I mean, you know, we may have not stretched to the limit, but I think if you are blind to that, you can go the wrong way. So I learned that the mental strength from that time on can contribute to a significant percentage of performance, more than probably where we've been limiting our thinking on that area.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours, I think, and the audience would like it. But yeah, thank you so much for the interesting talk, and also it was, I think, for all of us here in the room, really inspirational. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. And hopefully, yeah, we will see you again, maybe in Germany or so. I mean, now you are going to Boston, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And so all the best for you and your team, your athletes.
Yeah, thank you for the German followers. I want to wish them well. I have good memories of Germany, I became a World University Games champion in Duisburg in 1989. I have a footmark there, permanent footmark, and a tree. Hopefully it will grow to be the size of a baobab tree and outlive us all, and the leaves became shelter and contribute to serious climate change intervention measures. Yeah. Above all, I ran good my BP in Germany. I ran, one of the few times I ran with a doctor, Dr. Thomas Weissenberg, in his last journey as he finished his running. So I have fond memories of that territory. And I would say track and field as a culture in Europe, more than in other places. I mean, America athletes perform well, Kenyan athletes perform well. But I think where there is a deep-rooted culture of track and field and running in general is in Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.